Nearly a week after a shocking video of Donald Trump talking about sexually assaulting women, a San Diego congressman is coming to the nominee's defense.
You're shaping each generation of young men to come up. If you're saying that this is normal, you're encouraging this kind of behavior.
But students are worried about what effect Trump's comments will have on campus sexual assaults.
And why are San Diegans paying $1.6 million for restrooms that have been closed for almost a year? KPBS Evening Edition starts right now.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A San Diego congressman is defending Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his lewd statements about women in a recently resurfaced 2005 videotape. Republican Duncan Hunter says the focus on those statements is, quote, totally unfair and have nothing to do with the election. The statement came in an interview with the Washington Post. Hunter also mentioned his time as Marine and said, quoting again, "If you had recorded the stuff my Marines and I were talking about after not seeing a woman for 7 months, but let's just leave it at that." Hunter's statement drew an immediate reaction from his Democratic challenger in the 50th District. In a written statement, Patrick Malloy says we should not be surprised that Hunter is excusing Trump on the bus since he's admitting to similar conduct himself. Polls show the congressional race for the 49th District is close. Political experts say this is the toughest race of Congressman Darrell Issa's 16-year political career. Today, I sat down with his challenger, Doug Applegate, the retired Marine colonel and attorney, says his experience has prepared him for Congress. Thanks so much for joining us. If elected, what would your agenda be?
Well, as a freshman congressman, I don't think I'm going to have an agenda, but I can tell you what the three most important things are for the families and voters in the California 49th, and that's jobs in the economy. And I think for San Diego and San Diego County, as well as Southern California, that means betting and investing on technology. And we have great research centers here in Southern California, particularly San Diego, between Scripps, UCSD, biotech, it just goes on and on. The next thing that I think is very important to the voters of the 49th is to deliver on the promises for my sisters and brother warriors who served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that means fully funding, fully staffing, and correcting any of the bureaucracy bottlenecks in the VA. And last, I think, is transparency in government that really speaks right now to requiring the disclosure of any and all donors in the political process so we don't have the black dark money in independent PACs that both parties should now see is an evil and a threat to our democracy.
And how would you accomplish this if Republicans keep the majority?
Well, I think what you need to do is to recognize it's not as easy as reaching across the aisle. I don't know if it ever has been. But I think that what you need to do is to change the metrics and the leverage points in Congress. And let me give you an example, just one example. I don't think we need to discuss whether or not climate change is real. It's not productive. I can tell you what is necessary, and that is a Manhattan-type project, equivalent for renewable energies. And I can tell you how I believe this Congress and the next Congress should get there. I know that the Navy and the Marine Corps, two big players in San Diego, have been going up the hill for the last 10 years, pounding on doors, pounding on tables, demanding that they have more renewable energy. And that's what we need to do. Now, if you ask me, does that appeal to both Democrats and Republicans? When you're talking about national security, particularly in the area of projecting force around the world and deterring aggression, renewable energy is something that is pivotal. And I think you're going to have an effect with jobs in the economy right here in San Diego if Congress funds that type of research.
Right now, a lot of people in the country, there's been a lot of focus on a lewd videotape that has surfaced of Donald Trump speaking to a reporter. Can you offer your thoughts and reactions to that?
It's ridiculous we're even talking about whether or not there's any context to that. I've been an attorney for 3.5 decades, and it's offensive. It's criminal. Anyone who ever endorsed Donald Trump on that video clip alone should retract their endorsements. I don't see that there's any middle ground with that.
Today, we also spoke to Congressman Darrell Issa. The District 49 representative sat down with Midday Edition host Maureen Cavanaugh. She asked about his support for Donald Trump and whether or not he'd vote for him. Here's what he had to say.
Realistically, there are only two people who are going to become president of the United States. And
oh, come on, give Johnson a chance.
Do you still want to see Donald Trump as president of the United States?
I want to see Mike Pence as vice president. I want to see Rudy Giuliani maybe as Secretary of State, Chris Christie as Attorney General. I want to see a reform team. You know, that's what we do as voters. Is we think we pick a president, but we really pick a team. Even in Congress, you pick the individual based on their characteristics, but you're also, to a certain extent, picking a balance of power or divided government. You know, voters in this country have now been picking disproportionately divided government. Almost every time they get completely united government, what they think they want, they generally rethink it and go to divided government.
Just one more question about this, because if you feel so strongly about not coming out and saying, I am going to vote for Donald Trump, I support Donald Trump for president.
No, I said I want to see Mike Pence. I will be voting for that ticket.
You will be voting for that ticket. Okay.
Issa also addressed the criticism of the aggressive investigations he led, including Benghazi, as the Oversight and Government Reform chairman.
We did those investigations. Some were bipartisan, some appeared to be partisan, but the fact was, making them partisan was the mistake. The fact is, if you have failures of government, waste, fraud, and abuse, you need to go after it.
Finally, Congressman Issa discussed working under a Hillary Clinton administration if she were to win this election.
I suspect that a Hillary Clinton administration will be less hostile in some ways than Barack Obama, because I suspect that it's going to use less executive action, less the signature sort of thing than this administration. This administration's been sued in the courts and lost on a number of its executive actions. I suspect that Hillary Clinton, if she's elected, will tend to work with Congress better.
To listen to the full Midday Edition interview with host Maureen Cavanaugh and Congressman Issa, log on to kpbs.org/midday. Since those interviews earlier today, the New York Times has published its own interviews with two women who say Trump touched them inappropriately. One says he kissed her against her will in 2005. The other says he groped her during an airplane flight 30 years ago. This is a developing story. Look for more coverage online at kpbs.org. College students are often encouraged to speak up if they hear remarks condoning sexual assault, but AP reporter Marina Hutchinson says many believe Donald Trump's recent remarks about locker room banter hurt the fight against sexual violence on campus.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it.
When I saw the video about Trump talking about pretty much sexually assaulting women without their consent, it didn't surprise me. It seemed like one of those things that has just come out of the woodworks during this election.
Donald Trump's remarks are digging up a painful reality at college campuses across the country.
But when he brushed it off as locker room banter, I think that just shows a really big fundamental problem with how women are treated in general and how groups of men go about talking about women.
The Hillary Clinton campaign is using the leaked tape in its latest political ad.
I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait.
But some say it's not a partisan issue.
Kind of a human issue, so it's one thing to support him, and it's another to say this is okay.
It's particularly offensive to women like Whitney Ralston, a University of Richmond junior who was sexually assaulted by a classmate.
You're shaping each generation of young men to come up. If you're saying that this is normal, you're encouraging this kind of behavior. You're saying that violence is acceptable and it's what makes you a man.
The federal government estimates that 1 in 5 women has been sexually assaulted while in college. More than 200 schools are under sexual violence investigations by the Department of Education. At a growing number of campuses nationwide, students are encouraged to speak up if they hear remarks condoning sexual aggression. So Trump's comments, some felt, hurt the fight against sexual assault on campuses.
If you can say that and you're running for president, then what's to stop, a senior in college from committing a kind of an assault to one of their classmates? And
the fact that he said that stuff, the fact that he continuously says sexist things, misogynistic things, is tearing down all the hard work we've done.
In recent years, the federal government has stepped up pressure on colleges and universities to improve their response to allegations of assault. In one case at Stanford University, swimmer Brock Turner was sentenced to 6 months in jail for sexually assaulting a woman, a penalty that many felt was too lenient.
They're very similar, those two. Both have this sense of entitlement because either one's rich and famous, the other one is an amazing athlete and viewed as this really cool, social leader at Stanford, and then they both felt like they were entitled to something. For Trump, it's grabbing, and then for Brock Turner, it was assaulting a woman behind a dumpster. For me, it was a guy that I knew and thought I was friends with, taking advantage of me.
The hope at college campuses across the country is that discussions about Trump's remarks push society to realize more work needs to be done to shift this negative culture towards women. Marina Hutchinson, The Associated Press.
2 measures on the November ballot would change the city of San Diego's election rules in a big way. Measure K and L are both attempts to shift more power from the city's June elections, which typically have low voter turnout, to the November general elections when turnout is larger. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more.
On June 7th, San Diego voters cast ballots in what is referred to as the primary elections. And it's true, they were primaries for state and federal office. But for the city of San Diego, the word primary is a bit misleading. That's because the city's election rules allow candidates to win outright in June if they get more than 50% of the vote. Mayor Kevin Faulconer won 57% of the vote in June, which is why his name won't appear on ballots next month. The mayor's race is settled.
We are here today to talk about measures K and L on the November ballot.
City Council President Sherry Leitner supports changing the election rules to force November runoffs between all of the top 2 vote-getters in June, regardless of how many votes they get. That's Measure K. Measure L would require most referenda and citizens' initiatives to be voted on in November, not in June. Leitner says the routinely higher voter turnout in November will translate to a more responsive city hall.
Special interests and political insiders attempt to exert more influence during the primary when decisions can be made by just a small fraction of registered voters. Voting yes on K and L will make sure that the most important decisions in our city are made when the greatest number of voters vote. That's why I am strongly supporting these measures. Don't you say? How about you guys?
Historically, turnout in November has been much higher than in June, sometimes more than double. City Councilman Todd Gloria says measures K and L are about improving democracy.
But I think the people are saying very clearly that we want the elections to be more democratic, to have more folks at the table, to make sure the decision-making is made by more San Diegans, and that we align that this process is so good that the state and the federal government already do it that way, right? Yeah.
Measures K and L are supported by the County Democratic Party and a number of labor unions. And it's noteworthy that Democrats have typically fared better in November elections than in June. Both measures are opposed by the County Republican Party, the Chamber of Commerce, and other conservative groups.
Folks should vote against Measure K because this has been a rushed process.
City Councilman Chris Cate is leading the opposition to measures K and L. He acknowledges these measures got placed on the ballot fair and square by a majority vote of the City Council. But he says when it comes to something as fundamental as city elections, these ideas needed more discussion.
I think the fear that I have is confusing voters, telling them when they're able to vote on something and when they're not able to vote on something. And also, if this is the case, we're going to be changing our electoral process constantly. I think there's issues with that, especially when you're not doing it in a very open and constructive manner with voters who are the ones being affected.
Kate says he's not opposed to reforming San Diego election laws to give more power to November elections. A better way to do that, he said, could be ranked choice voting, which is already used in some California cities. Under ranked choice, there's no need for a June primary. Instead, voters can rank their candidates by preference on one ballot, first, second, third, etc. If one candidate gets more than 50% of the first choice votes, that candidate wins. If not, the city starts counting second and third choice votes until one candidate gets a majority.
If this is not the best and final process, we should have had a discussion about how to get there and not have this costly measure put on the ballot.
Why should just a few voters and special interests make decisions that affect us all?
The official Yes on K and L campaign has raised more than $400,000 so far and is already spending it on polls, consulting, and internet and TV ads. The No campaign has raised about half of that. With a month left before the elections and with more than 24 state and local ballot measures competing for attention, the time to win votes is running out. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
California Democrats and Republicans rarely agree on anything, but this election, both parties are opposing one ballot measure. Proposition 60 would require condom use in pornographic films. KCET's Val Zavala gives us a quick look at Prop 60.
Prop 60 in 60 seconds. Prop 60 would require that the producers of pornography make sure that actors wear condoms. But that's not all. Producers would also have to get a health license from the state and pay for medical exams. If they don't, they could get sued or fined. Cal OSHA, that's the agency that regulates workplace safety, would be in charge of administering and enforcing the law. Supporters say it would protect adult film actors from getting HIV and other sexually transmitted infections, which has happened. They say some porn producers put money first and don't really care about the actor's health. On the other side, the adult film producers and many performers, they say they already follow health regulations and actors are tested regularly. And in LA County, the center of the porn business, there's already a law requiring condoms. Plus, they say Prop 60 would hurt California's economy by driving a multi-billion-dollar business out of state. So a vote for Prop 60 means yes, the state should regulate and license the porn industry and be sure condoms are used. A no vote means there would be no change to the current adult film business.
Last night, we showed you extra postage is needed for this year's mail-in ballot because it's so big. We wondered what would happen to ballots that didn't have enough stamps. So we asked the Postal Service. They say if a ballot is short on postage, it will still be delivered to the Register of Voters. You can find all of our election coverage online at kpbs.org/voter guide. That's where you can find more in-depth information on candidates plus local and state ballot measures. When San Diego's Faultline Park opened last year, it was hailed as a triumph for public and private partnerships and badly needed open space in East Village. It included art installations, a children's play area, and public restrooms. But only 2 months after the park's grand opening, the restrooms, which were funded by public tax dollars, were closed. Megan Wood with our media partner iNewsSource joins us with more. Megan?
That's right, Ebony. I'm here at Faultline Park, where the city provided Pinnacle Bayside Development with $1.6 million to maintain the park and the restrooms behind me. But staff at Stella Public House said the restrooms quickly became a hub for drug use and prostitution. They said it became too unsafe for its employees and customers.
Individuals were going in there and doing things other than using the facilities and getting out. They were doing drugs, they were doing illegal activities.
The homeless population in East Village is more than 800 people, but there are currently only 4 public restrooms in the area, the closest being half a mile away.
It frustrates me to a point where it's just like, well, that would be the nearest restroom for anyone living in this area because there's not too many places open.
The Faultline project is one of 5 similar agreements negotiated by Civic San Diego, and it's the only one where the developer was reimbursed the cost of maintaining the park and restrooms. The city confirmed that they meet with Civic and the developer once a month to discuss ongoing issues at Faultline Park, but it's unclear when the restrooms will reopen, or if the city will take any action to get the $1.6 million in taxpayer money back.
Padres CEO Mike D is out. The team announced this in a one-line statement today. It doesn't say whether he resigned or was fired. The Padres hired D back in 2013. Under his tenure, the team had poor showings in the National League West, but he also oversaw renovations to Petco Park and helped bring the All-Star game here last summer. Fossil fuel pollution in the U.S. was lower in the first half of this year than it's been since 1991. That's the findings of a government report released today. Energy officials say one reason for the drop is an 18% decrease in coal use. That was down because it was so hot this January through June, the third warmest ever in the U.S. Officials also credit the growing use of renewable energy like solar and wind. The MTS has a new bus facility in East County. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh says it will allow the agency to get rid of nearly all of its older diesel buses.
The old facility was cramped.
That building was well beyond its useful life. It was all flat shop floors. We had no ways to raise up buses to do inspections and things like that. No way to maintain CNG buses there.
The new East County bus operations and maintenance facility is nearly 35,000 square feet, with lifts large enough for city buses. The $45 million facility also has enough room to store compressed natural gas. It allows MTS to get rid of the last 100 diesel buses it still has in regular use.
We're now 100% biogas. So what we buy on the market through BP is gas made from landfills. So it's 100% renewable.
CNG has a much lower carbon footprint than diesel, with an 89% decrease in CO emissions. Though the project includes a new maintenance center, officials say the buses themselves are just as reliable as diesel. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
I'm Hari Srinivasan. On the next News Hour, our Leading Edge series explores the surprising way Portland, Oregon discovered shocking levels of air pollution. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Turning wastewater into drinking water, San Diego's City Council Environment Committee has given the thumbs up to an environmental report on a $3 million plan to offer customers a water source that's not affected by the drought. Officials say the plan can provide 83 gallons of recycled water per day within 20 years of its implementation. The full City Council still needs to approve the report. Fall weather is finally here, with temperatures in some areas of San Diego County dropping as low as 40 degrees tonight. Heather Waldman has more in tonight's forecast.
A stormier pattern is going to take shape across the western U.S. through the end of this week. Most of it, though, well off to the north of Southern California. San Francisco looking at some significant rainfall Friday into Saturday, but we'll stay in with our typical summer or October-like sunshine and low clouds, at least in the morning at the coast. Those temperatures will be in the 60s and 70s near the water, a few degrees milder inland. Again, watching for that marine layer in the morning, although it doesn't look like it's going to be too dense the next couple of days. Again, the stormy weather continues for the Pacific Northwest. We'll get a touch of that from San Francisco on northward, but nothing to worry about across San Diego County rain-wise. Temperatures will be in the 40s at Mount Laguna, mid-50s to low 60s along coastal areas. Into the day on Thursday, increasingly windy in northern parts of the Golden State, but still pretty quiet from Los Angeles to San Diego, back inland towards the Phoenix area. It is going to turn milder as you head inland, but temperatures pretty close to average across our region. Into the weekend, again, here's that area of stormy weather, the heaviest of the rain, Northern California up to western Washington, right along I-5. So if you are flying to or from that region, I'd certainly expect a host of delays with not just rain, but very gusty winds as well. None of that to worry about if you're staying in town, though. Look at this at the coast. Temperatures will be in the low to mid 70s each of the next few days. Those clouds will be a little bit more pesky Friday into Saturday as that big storm moves in off to our north, but still expecting to see breaks of sunshine during the next few afternoons. Lows will stay in the low to mid 50s. Inland, like I said, a few degrees warmer. We'll be near 80 degrees Thursday, then looking at mid 70s this weekend into early next week. Overnight lows will be in the mid 50s to low 60s most nights. That marine layer probably going to drift a little bit farther inland Friday and Saturday mornings. Again, a little bit more moisture in the air thanks to that storm moving into the Pacific Northwest. Into the mountains, some cooler air is on the way, but staying bright and sunny throughout this weekend. Temperatures will be near 70 degrees Thursday. Then we're looking at mid to upper 60s Saturday through Monday. Mostly sunny sky means it'll be feeling a bit warmer during the afternoons, but the mornings will certainly be cool with temperatures dropping into the low to mid 40s each night. In the deserts, we'll be in the mid 90s on Thursday, but then look at that, upper 80s Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Partly to mostly sunny skies each day. So with clear skies overnight, temperatures should fall into the upper 50s to low 60s over the next few days. I'm meteorologist Heather Waldman for KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, Donald Trump's controversies are costing him the support of Republican leaders, even in San Diego. We find out why a candidate for San Diego's Board of Supervisors has withdrawn her support for Trump. And on Midday Edition, we talk to the candidates for County Supervisor of San Diego's 3rd District about the key issues affecting the race. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.